Introducing the Paddy Power World Darts Championships.
Welcome back to Online Darts, everyone. It's the build-up to the Paddy Power World Championship, and of course it's that time of year to get Chris Murphy back on. Chris, it's been an unbelievable year, and all eyes now lead to Muswell Hill.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it's one of the most exciting build-ups to World Championship because of the way that the tournaments has been spread out over the course of the year, and particularly with the emergence of Luke Humphries as a dominant major champion towards the end of it as well.
Yeah, no, in the last 3 months he's gone, not winning a TV tournament, to favourite for the World Championship with throughout the last 4 majors in his back pocket. Incredible.
Yeah, it really is, and I think it's been coming for a while. I think we saw it last year on the European Tour, and I think that we're really seeing now how that readies players to play on the big stage. Or European Tour events have bigger crowds than major events, so I think he's done the groundwork, and it's all starting to come to fruition, and he seems pretty unstoppable at the moment.
Although he is the favourite and the form is red hot, the World Championship brings a different kind of pressure, doesn't it? And it's something he's going to have to get used to quite quick, being the favourite for that.
Yeah, I think it's pressure that he has dealt with to an extent. I think in each major victory it brought his own pressure. First is crossing the line to win his first one. Doing it at the Grand Prix was very reminiscent of Van Gogh in 2012, the way he did that. But then to go to the next tournament, and well, it wasn't the next tournament, but the next sort of enormous tournament, the Grand Slam, and win again. And then to play Van Gogh in a final and be in a difficult position. So I think that everything that he's done in these last couple of months has shown that he can deal with the pressure. Yeah, the World Championship is different, but he's played there a few times as well and had some good results there. So I don't think it will affect him as much as it might affect other players.
Yeah, I know they've got to get there first, but all eyes are on that collision course he's on with Michael Van Gogh in that semi-final, and if they both get that, that's going to be an unbelievable spectacle, because there's a little rivalry developing between them, and I like it.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost a shame that it's not a collision course for the final. I think if the Players' Championship final had been the other way around, it could have been.
Yeah.
But then most people will be giving the upper hand to Van Gerwen. But I think both players show each other a lot of respect, the way they talk. You know, there's no... You know, Michael might try the odd mind game and things like that from time to time in an interview, but you can see that he genuinely knows that Luke is now one of the big boys, and I think it's exciting because there are one or two big boys now at the World Championship, and it hasn't always been that way.
No, look, the World Champion, world number one, Michael Smith, there are question marks around his form right now, where last year he came in on a crest of a wave, where now he's got some questions to answer, because the form in the back end of the year hasn't been to the standard we expect, and I'm sure Michael expects of himself. Yeah,
absolutely true. I think in this age, I think that if you're one of the top players who's winning major titles, you'd expect to win a couple a year at least, as one of the sort of top 4 to 6 players. I think, you know, it's not like Phil Taylor where one person was winning everything, or Van Gogh a few years ago. I think that there's enough to go around for the top players to be winning a couple a year. So for the world number one to have not picked up any of the big ones is troubling. However, the biggest one will put it all right.
Well, he's not the only one. If I'd have said to you this time last year that Gerwyn Price wouldn't win a TV tournament except for the World Cup, obviously with Wales, but a singles TV tournament, you'd have gone, no chance.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair point, because if you were to speak in Michael's defence, then you would kind of say that, well, nobody's saying they're worried about Price, but everyone seems to be a little bit worried about Smith, and he's the man at the top of the pile, having won it last year. You spoke about pressure with Humphries. I think defending it's another thing, and the World Championship brings a different kind of pressure to Price. There's no hiding away from it. The crowd is a factor, particularly at the World Championship, when it comes to Price, and I don't think he relishes going to that tournament.
No, well, he openly said at that night of Champions he'd happily win every other TV tournament and skip the Worlds. He just doesn't like that environment, which is staggering considering it's that he said, can we move it to Cardiff as well, by the way. But look, you've been a huge advocate of the women's game, and a couple of subjects here on the women's game. First of all, Bo obviously chose to go to Lakeside and defend her crown there. Does the tournament miss something by not having her in it after the way she performed at the Grand Slam?
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen her in it. I think that she's more than capable of winning some matches at a World Championship. I think that a lot of PDC tournaments that she's not in Miss. I've spoken about the development tour in the past. I think she's capable of winning the titles on the development tour. But at the end of the day, you've got to do what makes you happy and what you feel comfortable with, particularly at a younger age. So I don't, for 1 second, question her decision or disagree with her decision to go down that route. And again, at any age, it must be difficult for a player to not go and defend a title. And I think even in the men's tournament, we've very rarely seen players not want to go back and defend it. Even players that are world champions might have tried to defend it and then moved to the PDC in the days when they used to sort of cross the divide a year later. So I think defending the title, there's something to be said for that. And I think we're going to see Bo at Ali Pali at some point, probably a few times.
I remember this time last year when it had just been announced that Fallon had got a place in the world to win in the world match play, but it didn't look particularly great the way it was done, and you were adamant that everyone was missing the key point, that we were going to get 3 women at the World Championship going forward. Now, I know it's a unique set of circumstances, but are you disappointed the PDC didn't have something in place to give that place back down the Women's Series order of merit rankings, because we've gone back to 2 straight away after the celebration of having 3 going forward?
Yes and no. I think I'm disappointed there's not 3 women at the World Championship. Having something in place, I guess, you said it had been a unique set of circumstances. Often these things have to happen first before anyone kind of notices we might need to do something to sort of honour that. Maybe it was never even thought of that somebody might decline a place or choose to play in another tournament that they makes them ineligible to play in that one. So I think it'll be interesting to see what happens next year, I suppose. But I think, having watched the women's game grow over the last few years, I think there are other women outside of Lisa, Makuru, Fallon and Bo that could actually go and win a game on the stage at Ali Pali. So I think having 3 women there would massively benefit the women's game.
Well, yeah, on that women's game, obviously, I know that you love doing the women's series and the women's world match and everything like that. The women's game has never been in a better place than what it's been now, has it, with all these opportunities that are there?
Absolutely, and they've got a choice, of where they want to play. It's not just there's still the WGF tournaments, of course, but they've got the women's series, which has been well attended over the course of 2023, and the recent announcement of the ADC women's tour as well. So there's a place for players that maybe aren't quite at the level to go and get into the women's world match play, but can win titles. We saw here at the Super Series the women's finals, and Adita Hedman won it, but we saw players that maybe we haven't really seen in quarterfinals in the PDC events.
Absolutely.
But got to the quarters of the finals here.
Well, yeah, on that, the WADC, £33,000 in prize money available just for women. That's an incredible push forward for that women's game.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. And I think that's the thing when you watch the women's series and even the WGF events, there's a certain amount of players who are going to pick up most of the titles, therefore most of the money, but you're creating something for this sort of lower end, something for them to play in, sort of learn the trade a bit, improve, get better, and see them challenging at the women's series and maybe getting into the match play and things like that. I think there's just a much more of a pathway to something really. Absolutely. Whereas you're going back 5 years, and there was one tournament that they were all trying to get to. Yeah. Now there's quite a few different ambitions that women can have in darts, whether that's in the women's game or in the open category.
Yeah, and obviously on that, the women's world match play, are we almost at a point now where the field needs extending? I'm not saying massive numbers, but some of the women that missed out, and that bracket from kind of like 8 to 16, there was some great talent in there. So there's an argument now that the women's game has developed enough to increase the field at the match play. I
think there's definitely 16 players that can put on a good tournament. I think put on a high level of darts. I think they can put on a good show. How they factor that into that particular tournament, I don't know. Maybe lean towards maybe another tournament where we have a women's UK Open finals or Players Championship, the women's series finals, if you like, Mindhead simultaneously with the Players Championship finals or anything like that. We could throw out all these ideas at the people. We've got to make it work logistically.
Yeah, absolutely.
But in short, my answer is there are definitely 16 players at least good enough to make people want to watch a women's tournament on TV.
Obviously, you've been involved in darts a long time now, and you've watched a lot go through. And I want to talk about Luke Littler. Obviously, we've seen him here firsthand, how explosive he was, and everyone said the World U final was going to be his first huge test, being on that stage playing against Jean Van Veen, who we've seen here as well, a man that got to the European Championship semi-finals. But the way he answers every question that is put in front of him, we have a very special talent on our hands in the darting world now, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. He's quite grounded. I think he knows how special he is, but I think he likes to play it down a little bit, take the next step. The one interesting one was, I thought, when he won the World Youth Final, he was asked by ITV about it, quite a sort of tongue-in-cheek thing about winning it maybe 8 times, and he did say, well, if I get in the top 32 I won't be able to play in it, and that seems to be quite an immediate aim for him, and why wouldn't it be? I think it'll be very, very interesting, first of all, seeing how he gets on at the World Championship, because I think he could, it's a strange thing to say, but I was going to say cause a few upsets. Whether there'd be upsets or not, I don't know, but he could certainly cause a bit of an earthquake at Ali Pali, and then on the Pro Tour, he's going to be dangerous straight away. Well,
I think most people assume that he's going to beat Christian Kiss due to Christian's injury problems that he's got at the moment, and then he faces Andrew Gilding, who won the UK Open this year, and many people think, and probably will be, the favourite going in against the UK Open champion, which is remarkable.
Yeah, and again, we've just spoken about it. Luke Humphries, the women's game, the word that's coming into my mind is opportunity, and Luke's had probably one of the first generations of players to have the opportunity to grow in every possible way. So he's played in the WDF system, he's played in the boys' tournaments, the men's tournaments, he's played in the JDC system, he's just been this winning machine in junior darts. Then he's been able to play in ADC tournaments. Then he's been able to come and play here at the Modus Super Series, get some stage experience as well, which I think is massively important. And of course the PDC development tour, where he's done fantastically well, go on and play the stage at Minehead. He's had every little bit of experience that anyone could possibly have. And yeah, he's 16. You know, most players maybe haven't got that level of experience until a long, long time later in their career. So I don't think the age is going to be a barrier. I think he's ready straight away to go and really stir things up.
On that, could he do the unthinkable?
Now you're asking. I think somebody called Luke will win the World Championship.
Fair enough. I don't dislike that one at all. But the year as a whole, it's been interesting. We've seen ebbs and flows, and I think looking at it from the way I do, I think the standard at the top of the game isn't quite where it was 4 or 5 years ago, but I think everyone else has bunched up and made it more competitive. And are you worried that they can't get to those levels again? Because for the last 18 months, we've not seen those massive averages like we saw week after week after week. They don't seem to be there at the moment.
I think if Luke Humphries carries on doing what he's doing at the moment, he will drag the standard up. And I think then you have to see everybody respond. So we have seen it, bizarrely, probably the person we've seen it the most from that really high standard is Gerwyn Price.
Yeah.
But it hasn't resulted in any trophies. But I think if somebody comes along, or if it's Humphries that's going to elevate it to a level where you're going to have to play at this level, I think part of it is, and I'm not saying it's conscious necessarily, but it's maybe a little bit of complacency from some of the top players subconsciously, because they know they don't have to play to that incredible standard. No one goes on stage and thinks, I'm only going to average 100 today, I'm not going to average 110. You know, no one does that.
Yeah.
But just in the stuff that goes on behind the scenes, probably all of those players know what you've just said is true, and therefore deep down they might be, you know, a feeling of sometimes they can get away with one. And you look at most tournaments this year, some of the top players that have won the event at some point in the tournament have kind of got away with a dodgy performance or whatever. So yeah, I think it's going to take somebody to be the benchmark, and then you will see, because we know Gerwyn Price is capable of it, we know Michael Smith's capable, we know Peter Wright's capable, we certainly know Michael van Gerwen's capable. So if someone says, right, this is what it's going to take to beat me, then I think we can see it elevate again. Yeah, and look, you get to commentate on the Pro Tours and everything like that, and we've seen Peter Wright miss a load of Pro Tours. Nathan Aspinall certainly missed a lot. I spoke to him about this last night. I don't think Michael van Gerwen was battle ready because he missed a lot of the Pro Tours. I know it's hard to fit it in for these elite players to fit it all in, but do they need to play in these Pro Tours more? And I know it's tough, but that battle ready hardened wasn't there for some of these players this year when they really needed it. I think, personally, it's horses for courses. I think that there's probably some players that would be better suited to going away. Phil Taylor used to do it at times. Go away, prepare, getting your own little bubble, maybe bringing a practice partner, just do whatever you need to do to prepare for the big tournaments. I think there are others that need competitive darts constantly, and I think that I wouldn't say anyone's sort of decline is definitely down to that, but I think once you start missing them, they become easier to miss. I think that's maybe part of it as well. So there were players that you've just said there that would never miss a Pro Tour, never, and suddenly started to do that, thinking, oh, this could be the thing that gets me going, when actually it might have gone the other way. So it'll be interesting with the change of the schedule next year as well, to see if that makes the top players go to all of them, because they're not weekends anymore. And I wonder if that's part of a factor in that change as well.
Talk Gary Anderson with you, because you and I have been doing these for a good couple of years now, and we all thought he was off into the sunset and was going to enjoy his retirement. And this year we've got vintage Gary back, that we've seen him beat Gowan Price on a main stage. We've seen him do remarkable things, push Luke Humphries to the limit, go and play on the Euro Tour this year, and that drive is there. And this is a welcome return, isn't it, that we get prime Gary back?
Incredible, yeah. And I think how long will we see it for? Who knows? But he's got that little bit of fire in the belly again. I think that we've seen maybe 6 or 7 years ago, and only in flashes since then. But he's found a balance that suits him, hasn't he, Gary Anderson? Where he's one of the players I think who can miss tournaments. So he's not missing a lot right now because he's playing so well, and he's playing in them a lot because he's winning a lot of matches. And he's another one of those players that can do the 110 averages. He can go higher than that. But yeah, he seems to be enjoying his darts. Well, I've done a couple of Pro Tours that he's won and spoke to him afterwards, and he seems just really content, as well as he's got that competitive edge, but also just seems generally sort of happy, certainly the second half of the year. And Ali Pali is a place where he usually comes alive, so you throw him to the mix as well, because I think when you look at the rankings, like when you look at a tournament, you sort of look at the top 8, the top 10, maybe the top 16, and kind of forget you've got this player sitting in the 20s
that no one's going to want.
Yeah, that on his day can wipe the floor with all of them.
Would you, if you were the PDC, would you test his resolve and offer him that Premier League place? Because he's adamant, if he's offered it, he will say no.
Yeah,
he was like, even if I win the Worlds, no. Look, the fans want him to do it. I understand why he doesn't, because he's got that balance, but if you're the PDC, he's still one of the biggest fans' favourites you will ever see. Would you test that resolve and ask the question?
He could be a challenger in Exit. Maybe one night. I don't know. I think it's because of the Rob Cross thing. That kind of set a precedent, didn't it? Because Cross openly said he didn't want to play, and therefore it was kind of. And we don't know what conversations go on behind the scenes.
Of course, yeah.
I mean, I think the question would be asked if he had a good run at Ali Pali. I think usually it's doing something big at a major that will finally get you there. But why not? You think in your head there are probably 6 or 7 players that are shoe-ins at the moment for the Premier League. So throwing Gary Anderson back in would tick a lot of boxes. And if he's going to play next year like he did this year, then you definitely want him in.
Were you surprised while we were talking about the Premier League that they didn't make any tweaks, that it's the same?
I think no, because I think that they kind of made it clear that it would probably stay the same for at least a couple of years. Give it a big run, 2 or 3 years, to see if people get used to the format, if it grows on people. I'm still of the opinion that I enjoy watching it. I enjoy watching the Premier League, but I think what I kind of, as a darts fan, as a darts viewer, I kind of started treating the Premier League as an individual tournament, and I guess that's kind of what they're doing with the audience in the venue. But I completely forgot about the actual league.
There's an actual table that's still to play for.
Until sort of the end of the season when it gets to playoff time. But part of the criticism that other people have levelled before is that it's a bit boring until it gets to the end of the season, because you're just seeing one-off matches that kind of feel a little bit meaningless until it gets to that. So I don't think... I haven't got a better solution, so I'm not going to criticise what they're doing. I still enjoy watching it, and I get the reasons for it. So I would say I'm not surprised, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they change things in 2025.
We've had some remarkable moments. We're sat here in Portsmouth at the Super Series in between sessions while we record this. Fallon Sherrock's nine-darter here on that stage was a memorable moment that will long live in the memory.
Yeah, and not long after she'd hit a 9-darter on the Challenge Tour as well. Yeah, so she'd become the first player to hit one in a PDC tournament, and then within a couple of months, the first player to first woman to hit one on TV. And in between that, she got given the MB as well, so not a bad year, Fallon Sherrick again. Particularly the end of the women's series, I thought was more kind of remarkable because I hadn't seen that from Fallon Sherrick before. Look, 9-darters are fantastic, and the history and always being sort of someone who's doing something for the first time, it creates that legacy and that aspiration and inspiration for young female darts players to follow. But more impressive for me was winning those 3 events in a row at the women's series when she had to. You know, people.
Absolutely, McCurry looked done and dusted, like running away with it. But then,
you look at the rankings now, you think it was comfortable, but going into those events, it certainly wasn't. So I hadn't seen that from Fallon probably for a good year to 18 months, and the way she performed I thought quite well at the Grand Slam as well. So for me, that consistency of winning those 3 events in a row to get her places in those tournaments was a bigger achievement in a way than the 9-darters.
Does that come back to competitive reps where she played a lot more this year, especially here at the Super Series, where this is the best model outside the PDC going, in my opinion?
Yeah, again, well, when speaking to her again, what she did was understood what she needed. So she made an effort to go, I need to be playing competitive darts. Now, Fallon Sherrick is a really interesting sort of case study because she is as famous as any of the top darts players in the world, if not more so around the world. So yeah, this is a fantastic setting for anyone to come and play competitive darts, but with the sponsorship, with the income that she must be able to get from elsewhere, for her this is a bit like putting in the hard yards, and she's done it. You know, it would be easy not to come here. But she's coming in knowing that this is going to benefit her game in the long run. She's created a magical moment in the process, and I think she's getting the reward from that.
On the Super Series going forward into 2024, are you excited to evolve the Super Series again?
Absolutely, and there are going to be a couple of changes that I'm aware of. I'm not going to give you the full scoop on that, but
I know anyway, so you've got to tell me.
Exactly. I think there are. Just watch this space because there's going to be a couple of things just that freshen up the Super Series. Just some sort of different things, not every week, not majorly different things, but just some exciting concepts to watch out for. And always just one of the beauties of the Super Series I find is that because of the yearly cycle of people losing the tour cards, we get a new batch of potential players, don't we? So possible. I wouldn't name them now because we don't know if they'll do something at the Worlds or whether they'll get a tour card.
Q School,
But there are a few players I'm looking down the list and thinking, really looking forward to having them here if that is.
Well, there's one I can say because he's already said he's not going to Q School. Surely you're going to be on the phone to Jeff Smith.
Yeah, 100%. I think he's someone that we would definitely want here. There are another couple of players that you would wonder if they would go to Q School simply because of what else is, where they are in their career, the age of seniors being available as well as this. People will make their own choice, and rightly so, but some still have that competitive edge to try and perform at the elite level. But I love the mix of players we get here, not just that, but also unearthing there'll be players that we're darts anoraks, you and I, but there'll be a player that we've never heard of that qualifies for an ADC qualifier next year and makes a name for himself and then gets invited back the next time, and then maybe in 2025 he's at Q School, and I love those stories as well.
One of the case studies of that is Dave Davis, that came as an ADC qualifier, won, absolute top guy, but we liked him, we liked what we saw, and he was like, he can play, and he's developed and flourished. Yeah,
absolutely. He's every time he's come here, he's been that little bit better, and that's nice to see that something that we're providing is giving people something extra in their own game. There are other players that have done the smash and grab type thing, like Adam Warner last year, won and went and got a tour card himself. But then there are other players from, like, we've done the ADC Europe qualifiers this year for the first time, or players like David Schlichting, who came, really entertained the audience, did good stuff. Nico Bloom, not playing darts since he was 16 and emerging, came and reached the final here. So there's again opportunities for not just UK-based players through that ADC pathway, but around the world as well.
Well, that whole relationship between the Super Series and, I'm going to say, ADC as a whole, that includes Oceanic, European and over here, that's a huge link-up, isn't it? Because there's paths to get on TV where beforehand you had to wait a whole year Lakeside is a case in point that players qualified 15 months ago and I'm only just getting that shot now, where now there is a clear pathway for players to get on TV and play.
Absolutely, and you mentioned Lakeside. While we're recording this, Lakeside's happening, and there are players in that tournament that were here last week or the week before that are playing well. Where else and when else in the history of darts have you had the opportunity to go and play on TV to prepare for a TV tournament the week or two before? So it's... You can't beat that practice. You can't beat that experience. Yes, there's differences. It's not in front of an audience. I think that brings its own tension during the week. The format as well brings its own tension because you get these matches that you have to win because of the league format, and they don't always necessarily come at the end of the day as well. There are players where in the middle of a day you lose and you're out, but if they win, then all of a sudden things open up as well. So you get some really exciting closes to groups, and the dynamic of the practice room, the feeling that is put on here at the Super Series is similar to how things would work at a professional event, where you've got a referee, you've got a players marshal, you've got a proper private practice area and things like that, and the TV production. So I think that again, nothing can get you ready better than this, to go and play on a stage in front of an audience for the first time.
Before I let you go, who lifts the Sidwell Dale Trophy on January the 3rd?
Yeah, so I've been dissecting the draw bracket. That semi-final that we mentioned earlier is I think probably going to happen, and it's just deciding for me who wins that semi-final. But I'm leaning towards Humphries. I do think that he's just gathered this kind of unstoppable momentum, and I just don't think he'll buckle. So I think the way he's playing, his attitude. I've been a big fan of Humphries for years. I've kind of always felt that one day he would be a world champion. Maybe this is his time. Might surprise you with who I think he'll beat in the final. I'm going to say that Luke Humphries defeats Johnny Clayton in the final.
Matt, absolute pleasure as always, mate. Thank you very much.
Pleasure's all mine. Thanks, Phil.
Introducing the Paddy Power World Darts Championships.